The average person is said to spend 15 minutes in the bathroom. Why not take advantage of that time and learn something new? Presenting the 15-minute podcast on weird facts, crazy details, and funny particulars that you'll be able to enjoy while you're taking a on your free time. Welcome to This Shit with Sam Butler. Welcome to another episode of the Shit Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Butler. I want to thank you guys for listening in. If you are not subscribed yet, please do me a favor. Like and subscribe our YouTube channel, which is Tu Amigo Sam on YouTube. Hit the notifications bell. Leave your comments. I read all the comments. I appreciate all the support and all the kindness that y'all show me towards this podcast. I want to shout out to all my friends in Latin America that listen to the podcast and use it as a teaching tool or a learning tool. I appreciate that. You can listen to the same episode in Spanish and then reference it in English, and that's a great way to kind of understand conversational English and Spanish. With that being said, I want to thank you guys once more. Also, I have a quick announcement. I will be performing. I would be headlining the 139 Club in Mexico City, August 26th. That's Friday, August 26th at 10:30 p.m. You can find tickets at circulorojo.com/Sam Butler. If you can make it out there, if you're in Mexico City in the area, if you want to come say hello, I'll be taking pictures with people, saying hello, hanging out. Come say hi. I'm really, really excited about doing this. It's an honor to be headlining a comedy club in Mexico City, and especially a club like 139, which is like the premier club in Mexico City. With that being said, welcome to another episode. This episode's a little nostalgic for me. It reminds me of my childhood. If you're not from the Mexico area, Mexico is a country. I joke about that on my set in stand-up, how to anybody that lives north of the Rio Grande, everything south of the Rio Grande is Mexico to us. So if you live in Mexico, the country, or I'm not sure about other countries in South America, but I know for sure in Mexico, you cannot not have ever lived without experiencing what we're about to talk about. And we're going to talk about the tortilla and how the tortilla was actually invented. I mean, the tortilla is a food that comes from way back. I believe in one of the episodes that we talked about tacos, we talked about the origin of the tortilla, the grain, and of course, corn is what they use to make the tortillas. And generally, they'll take corn and lime and water, and they'll turn it into a mixture, which turns it into dough. And this dough is then produced into a tortilla. Now, if you like tacos, you like tostadas, you like tostada chips, it all is part of the corn tortilla. But today's episode talks specifically about one gentleman. His name is Fausto Celorio, and people would call him Don Fausto Celorio. He was actually responsible for inventing the modern tortilla machine. Now, when we talk about the modern tortilla machine, this is a staple of Mexican cuisine. If you're a kid growing up in Mexico, like I was, I was born in the U.S., but my mom's family was in Chihuahua, the city, which is the capital of the state of Chihuahua, and so we would travel there about every 2 weeks to visit our family. My dad loved Mexico. He loved the culture. He loved being there with our family. So going to Chihuahua was part of our lives. And as a kid in Mexico, as my cousins and myself normally do, your parents will give you a bill or some change and have you go get tortillas. And everywhere, even in today's culture, everywhere you go, there's fresh, warm tortillas. Now, it's a little nostalgic for us because as they would send you on this errand, which is typical, we would usually, and I'm talking about the 80s. I don't know about today's society. I think everything's changed, especially because everybody's communicating through cell phones and everybody has everything at their fingertips. But when we were kids, we'd always have to walk past the arcade to get to the tortillas. And so as soon as we'd get the tortillas, we'd take the change and we'd go into the arcade. And our parents knew we were going to do this, although they told us we shouldn't do it. They said, make sure you get the tortillas. Sometimes they'd tell us to get a bottle or a 3 liter of soda, pop or whatever. And those were the errands that we had to run as kids back then. And we would make our way back to the arcade, and we'd end up spending 10, 20 minutes playing video games and spending all the change that we had gotten on the tortillas. And by the time we got home, the tortillas weren't warm anymore, and our family would be mad at us, and they would be yelling at us about spending the change. But hey, like they say in Spanish, lo paseado nadie te lo quita, which means they can't take away with the fun. They can't take away that you already had. So that was an experience that's nostalgic. Well, it turns out that something that I think everybody in Mexico might take for granted is the fact that you can get warm tortillas on a corner store. Usually it's a small shop. Usually there's, 5-6 employees. They're up early in the morning, and you can smell the tortillas as you walk by. It's a wonderful thing to experience if you ever visit Mexico, because they're fresh, and especially in the south of Mexico, tortillas aren't necessarily like what we're used to in the United States. The United States, a lot of the tortillas are made with white corn. And I believe, unless you live in a border town, I believe most of them are like grocery store, available at grocery stores. And they come like in plastic Ziplocs and storage bags or something like a Ziploc storage bag. I don't know if it's necessarily a Ziploc, but you do not get the experience of having a fresh, warm, corn tortilla. Well, in Mexico, that's something that happens every day. Sometimes people only buy the tortillas that they need for that day, or maybe a couple of days, and then they go because they can go get fresh ones. Well, all of this is possible due to a gentleman named Don Fausto Celorio. Now, Don Fausto Celorio was not he was a Mexican inventor. Now, he's a genius. This guy was a genius. He had over 150 patents. Now, a lot of his patents, I tried to look up information on his patents, and I couldn't find information. I could find information on the different patents that he had. I couldn't understand what they were for. Now, this, I think, all has to do with agricultural related patents, but what this gentleman did is he had one particular patent that I looked up where as you're processing grains, you're drying them out and even cooking them, which to me was interesting because I have no idea, no clue how that works. I know that the farmers will farm grains. I know that a combine picks them all up, and what happens after that, I have no clue. I am a terrible farmer. But this gentleman understood different problems within the systems, so he invented different machines. One of those machines was the tortilla maker. Now, he wasn't the first guy to try it. He actually tried, there was a gentleman who tried to invent the first tortilla machine in 1904. That gentleman's name was Everardo Rodriguez, and he had a partner named Luis Romero. They had come up with a device that pretty much would mass produce tortillas. The problem is that it made them square, and it would kind of like mash the dough and take it through a conveyor belt onto like a griddle or a skillet, and then it would cook there. Well, it wasn't very appealing to the general public, but in 1947, and just a few years later, I mean, it's like 33 years later, Don Fausto Celorio made a machine. He was like a mechanical engineer. So he developed a machine with a series of rollers that would roll the dough thinner and thinner until they got to a roller with a die cut. And then that roller would cut it into a circle. And then conveyors would take them through a system of ovens, 3 different ovens. And then it would finally come out ready to eat. Now, all of this process used gas. He used a lot of, different ovens. And so it was like a 3-stage oven system. And in 1947, he develops this machine. Now, here's a weird fact about this is that he actually developed this machine in secret because he was afraid that the townswomen would attack him if they found out that he was actually making a machine to mass produce tortillas, because that's something that generally the women, the townswomen would do. They'd make their own tortillas. That doesn't happen anymore, but back in the day, 1940s, it was still very common practice that the woman of the house would make the tortillas. So he did this in secret, and that's like an urban legend or a myth. I don't know if it's true or not, but that it was rumored that he did that. He invented this machine. Now, this is in 1947. His machine was on the rise. People were looking forward to buying this machine. He was building one machine per month on average, and he was selling one machine per month. But in the 1950s, he teamed up with an engineer out of the IPN, which is the National Polytechnic Institute. The guy's name was Alfonso Gándara. He helped him perfect the machine, and what he did more than anything is he helped make this machine. He helped improve the machine so it would improve the tortilla's texture. Now, if you eat tortillas regularly, like I do, you know that there's a certain texture to a tortilla that you're looking for, and they nailed it together. Well, he went from building like one machine a month to selling. Let me see. I had the. I think he was making like 40 machines a month by the time they came up with it. In 1963, they had developed a machine that was capable of making 132 kilos of tortillas in 1 hour. The whole process of making a tortilla took 60 seconds per tortilla. Now, that's assuming that it was one tortilla at a time, but it wasn't. It was a roller, so it's probably 10 tortillas at a time. Every minute you had 10 tortillas. Well, by 1963, they had focused so much on perfecting the machine that it would not overheat. They improved the internal pipes, and by 1963, they're making 132 kilograms of tortillas. Now, by 1975, he had developed a way to be more efficient with the gas. So he used 50% gas and was able to make 200 kilograms of tortillas every minute. So he was making 200 kilograms of tortillas per minute with one machine. And in 1995, Don Celorio came up with a smaller machine that was capable of producing 131 kilograms of tortillas per hour, but it had an electronic ignition. So I assume that was kind of like the stoves where you turn the knob and it has an electric pilot. So that also helped, I guess, in the production process. So Don Fausto passed away at age 87, but he had 150 inventions that were patented, and it's assumed that he sold over 100,000 tortilla makers around the world, which also bear his name. Which is a very cool to know. It's something that if you're out at a party with your friends, you can share. It's for sure it's the shit. Tortillas are the shit. And I appreciate you guys joining me on this episode of the Shit Podcast. The tortilla is not only a Mexican product, food, but also the mass production of it is a Mexican process. And there's tons of these machines still out there. So the next time you're in Mexico and you're walking down the street and you happen to see a tortilla shop, check it. It might say Celorio on it, which is what his last name was. If that's the case, take a picture, upload it. It's awesome. But that being said, I want to thank you guys for joining me once more on another episode of the Shit Podcast. This was a really fun episode talking about tortillas. And please feel free to leave comments. If you've experienced having fresh made tortillas in Mexico, let me know about it. I want to hear it. With that, I'm wrapping up this episode. Make sure you like and subscribe. Once again, find me on my social media as Tu Amigo Sam. Now, on my personal page, I'm Tu Amigo, T-U Amigo Sam. And on my comedian page, I'm Tu Amigo Sam. It's all separate. And please add me. I'll follow you back. Leave your comments, leave your memes. A shout out to the group, the Facebook group, Los Cacadienses. If you're not on that group, ask to join. We'll accept you. Thank you guys. And that wraps us up for this episode of the Shit Podcast.